Hello, and welcome to another episode of Blitzing with the Breeze. I'm Tristan,
I'm Nate.
and today we're going to be ranking quarterbacks. So what we have set up here is a tier list, and this is how we'll rank our quarterbacks. So at the start, we have elite. These are the best of the best guys in the league. We don't really have to argue about these people. Below that are franchise guys. These are guys that could probably lead a franchise for the next decade, or guys that have experience leading a franchise. Potential franchise. We're not sure if they can lead a franchise, but they certainly have shown flashes of leading one. Above average, these are guys that we pretty much know they're not going to lead this franchise anywhere, but these are guys that can produce for a football team. Mid, these are guys that don't really produce anything. They're basically average guys. Below average means they are a hindrance somewhat to their team. They probably shouldn't be starting. Bad basically means they are a hindrance to the team, and they should probably be working somewhere else. Unproven small sample size. These are guys that just simply don't have enough starts. And then criminal tier is reserved for a special someone, which we'll get to very quickly.
All right, so to start off, Deshaun Watson goes into the criminal tier. We'll be quick with that one. He's bad at football, and he's a bad person.
Yeah.
Not really much else to say. He has criminal plays on and off the field. So, moving on. We got Joe Burrow as our first quarterback. What do you think about Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow, I think, is elite. He has great pocket awareness. He's a very accurate passer. I don't think we have to waste much time on him. Last year, he was dealing with a lot of injuries, and that hurt the Bengals' success. But we've seen in the past, this is a guy that can absolutely lead the franchise to a Super Bowl. If he can get past Patrick Mahomes, of course.
Of course, I got to agree with you there. I think Joe Burrow is more than a franchise quarterback. He's one of the best to do it right now. There's a lot of arguments to be made. If Jake Browning went in and did well, now does that hinder Joe Burrow's what he actually does for his team? I think all that is a wash, to be honest. You see Joe Burrow and the plays he makes every Sunday. He's an elite quarterback, and he will be for a long time. I just hope for him to stay healthy, even though he's in the AFC.
So next we have Kenny Pickett. This is one of the more difficult ones. He only has 6 touchdowns on his career. It's pretty low. He was injured much of last season, but I still don't know if Kenny Pickett is going to ever be more than an average quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett, when he was drafted, he was the best quarterback in that class, but that's not really saying all too much.
That was a weak class.
It's probably the weakest quarterback class I've seen. Probably since 2013, and even then we got Geno Smith, who we'll touch on maybe in the future. But, for Kenny Pickett, he hasn't really done much. He has a good rushing ability. He has a good processor. He has the ability to, check down and get his receivers, well. He just needs to be schemed open for that. In a Matt Canada offense, it hasn't been good. But also, in general, he just has not produced. And, whether that's having really nobody outside of Freiermuth and Pickens or his offensive line, you can give him all the excuses, but he's not elevated his team. I think he's probably a mid to even maybe a below average starter at this point.
Yeah, I would say he's mid because he has shown at least a little bit of something. But I think next year is absolutely a prove-it year.
Yeah.
I think they were forced to take Kenny Pickett with Ben Roethlisberger retiring. So I would go ahead and put him in mid for now.
Yeah.
We could always change this list if we need to in the future.
Yeah, if we put someone in the same tier, I'll actually change our minds. Yeah, it's early on still, but Kenny Pickett had that cool fake slide, so that was cool in college.
Sure.
But next we got Mason Rudolph, the backup to Pickett. Really not much for me to say here. I think he's a spot starter. I kind of thought he was a bad football player at first. He's kind of developed a little bit because players can do that, just so you guys know. He was okay. I don't really have much else to say other than he was just, he's okay. He had some Mason Rudolph December magic, but that was about it.
Yeah, he had a stretch where he was good, but I think realistically he's below average.
Yeah.
I think that's where he belongs.
Spot starter, give me a solid backup for a while.
Yeah.
Getting, helmets involved with Myles Garrett, but,
Hey, we don't need that.
Next, Lamar Jackson.
He's elite. We don't need to spend much time on him. He doesn't have the most passing yards in the league, but he is one of the most efficient passers. We already know what he can do with his legs. He's basically a Madden player in real life. The only thing Lamar Jackson hasn't done is win Super Bowls, which he's playing Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So that happens, but Lamar Jackson's elite. I don't think we need to waste much time on that. We can move on.
Yeah, for me, personally with Lamar, the way I evaluate quarterbacks is not based off wins and Super Bowls and stuff. And maybe that's because I'm a Charger fan and we don't win at all. But we have a long history of good quarterbacks. But, at the end of the day, it's a team sport. There's 52 other players on the roster plus a whole staff and everybody. But Lamar has done everything he's possibly can for his team. Although he didn't step up on the biggest stage as well as I would have liked him to. I mean, you can't blame him for a fumble at the 1 yard line and them only running the ball, like I said, where it's like 3 to 6 times. It's not really something you can blame him for. And I think Lamar is going to be a elite quarterback for a long time. I am interested to see how he will do as he gets older, how his game will evolve from being more of that scrambling quarterback to now of he's a great pocket passer already, so I'm kind of excited to see him take away one side of his game and see how good he can still be. Is he going to play until he's 40? I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know if he'll make it that far. But next we have Trevor Lawrence. This was a guy who was hyped up in high school, won a national championship at Clemson in his first year, and has just been the guy, felt like, for all of college, and he hasn't lived up to it in the NFL.
Yeah.
I would say he is a potential franchise QB. He still has a lot of potential, but he hasn't shown it. He missed the playoffs this year. I thought he disappointed this year. So I think potential franchise is a perfect place for him, but he's going to have to play a little bit better. He's going to have to live up to his potential before we can start moving him up.
And honestly, I might have to argue to put him in above average. I think he might be even closer to mid. He just hasn't really shown much. He had a few flashes his first 2 seasons, but this year he had more weapons around him. The offensive line, though it struggled at times, isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It's kind of just, I don't know, I don't think he's going to ever live up to the potential that he had. And I think the hype plays against him quite a bit. So I'm going to argue for above average. What do you think?
I would still put potential because I still think he shows flashes. But, yes, I would say with the sample size we have, he's only played above average.
Okay.
But I think the Jaguars in general are just a mid-team. Yeah. Calvin Ridley probably had the worst 1,000-yard season I've ever seen.
And he had, there's clips of him having only 1 foot down for 8 touchdowns. He could have had so much more touchdowns. If only he gambled on those, but we'll see.
And then you got Christian Kirk, who I like, but he's on too big a contract.
Yeah.
So I don't like the Jaguars team in general.
It's not my favorite franchise to see. I miss Jacksonville. Yeah. I think Trevor Lawrence is seemed a good quarterback for them for a long time. I don't really see him becoming anything extremely elite. I think maybe not the perfect player-to-player sample, but you can get a guy like Kirk Cousins who's going to be just a solid quarterback for whatever team. I think Lawrence kind of is that, but not in the play style, just in career trajectory. But moving on, we got Will Levis.
Will Levis is tough because he doesn't have the largest sample size. I wasn't super high on him out of college. Granted, I don't think Kentucky was a great place for him. I'm kind of unsure where to rank him because also I think the Titans' offensive line was putrid. They were awful. And I didn't love their receivers. DeAndre Hopkins is getting old. Traylon Burks is disappointed a little bit, in my opinion. So I'll go ahead and see what you have to say about Will Levis, but I'm not really sure where to rank him yet.
I mean, quite frankly, for me, Will Levis is just unproven at this point of his career. He doesn't have really too much around him, like you said. His offensive line, you have Aaron Brewer starting, and Dylan Radunz, I think, is starting, and Andre Dillard.
All five
Nicholas,
of them are bad.
they're just, it's tough. I think Aaron Brewer is probably the best of the 5, and that's tough.
Their tackles are awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough group out there. After Taylor Wan left and Ben Jones, it's been bad. That said, though, Will Levis, he had that game where he just threw for 4 touchdowns, no picks in his first start, and everyone's like, oh my, there's another superpower in the AFC, but he came back to earth. I think the Mayo Man will have a good future with the Titans, but for now he's gonna, he needs help, and I think we'll get to the point where it'll be better for him. So I'll put him in unproven.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for him. Now. Next up, we have Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a spot starter. I think he's past being able to be a starting quarterback. I mean, at best, he was above average to begin with, and now I think he's really regressed. I think he's a spot starter at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. He's a spot starter. At one point, he was above average, mid quarterback. He led his team well, but I'd say spot starter is a good spot for Ryan Tannehill. Now going on to pretty much the opposite, Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson is a very intriguing player. He's Cam Newton with wheels. I mean, that's a good comp. Yeah, I didn't read it, but he's Cam Newton with wheels. I mean, he can throw the ball over the field. I think he's going to have to hone in his accuracy a little bit and, get through his progressions a little bit more. But at the end of the day, he kind of has it. You saw in the first few games, he has something there, and I think he's gonna. I mean, we got to put unproven, in my opinion, but he has the potential to be an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I mainly created that tier for Anthony Richardson. My biggest concern, honestly, is his health. It's just his play style. He's a very physical runner. He's very Cam Newton-like, and we see what happens to Cam Newton. His shoulder went out, and he started getting injured. That's my biggest concern with Anthony Richardson. I am a big fan. I think he has all the qualities to be an elite quarterback. I just think he's got to play more than, I think, 6 games he played last season.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, I might even be giving him a game. So I think he'll potentially get to elite maybe, but maybe that's a little too much.
I'm very excited to see what he has. I do worry about his shoulder, but
Yes.
I think with his potential, he has a lot to show, and I'm very excited to see him play in the NFL. Moving on, we have Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is one of my favorites. He's not really, as a quarterback, he's all right, but him as a person is awesome to watch, and I think I wrote for him for that. As a person, he's elite. As a quarterback, he's probably a spot starter. I think he's closer to mid. I think he can start on a lot of teams, but will he be really that good? Not really.
Yeah, he has a lot of ups and downs. I think he's a spot starter. I just think his ups and downs are a little bit too much. He's a little inaccurate. He makes some foolish decisions at times. So
He can lead
I
a
think,
team.
yeah, I think spot starter is a good place for him. Next up, we have C.J. Stroud. I think he's already a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
You can tell me if I'm wrong, but he threw for 4,000 yards and missed 2 games, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks. Really good deep ball thrower, great poise. He's already a franchise guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he's in the league in the next year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he has with his coaching staff and Gerard Johnson and Bobby Slowick. I mean, that's a great surrounding cast for him to learn from. Then his receivers of Nico Collins, Tank Dell. I'm like, this team was completely elevated because of the coaching and obviously C.J. Stroud doing an amazing job getting the ball and doing his job really. I think C.J. Stroud is going to be great for a long time to come, and it's just interesting to see the elevation he's already had in 1 year from Ohio State to
No question.
NFL.
I mean, as an Ohio State fan, he's better than I thought he'd be.
Yeah.
For sure. Next up, we have Zach Wilson. I feel like I have to put Zach Wilson in bad.
Yeah.
I feel like in a different situation, he could probably play better. But from what we've seen so far, he's been such a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson he's been a disappointment. I don't think he ever should have went number 2 overall. I mean, he had the playmaking ability. We're in that era. When was he drafted? Was it 20?
It was 2021. He was drafted after Trevor Lawrence.
So 2021, right? Think about it. Mahomes, he started his first year in 2018. Everyone's trying to get the next Mahomes. Zach Wilson has an arm. He can scramble around. He can do those crazy improvisational skills, those throws. But this is what would happen if Mahomes didn't turn into Mahomes, and Zach Wilson is Mahomes went wrong. So I feel like that's it's not good, and he's a bad quarterback. But I think he still has a little bit of a chance to be maybe an above average guy at one point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, not having the Jets' offensive line would help too. But yeah, Zach Wilson's just been bad. I don't know any other way to put it. He's just been terrible.
Yeah.
Next, we have Aaron Rodgers. I still think he's a franchise guy. He's going on age 40. Isn't the same quarterback he used to be, but I still think there's a reason the Jets traded everything it felt like to get him.
Yeah, I mean, he's older. He's coming off an injury. I don't really know where to rank him. It's a tough spot. But if we're going off the last time we've seen him play, I think he's still a franchise guy. He has an illustrious career, and I hope he wins another Super Bowl before it's all done and over for him.
Next up, we have Mac Jones. He is bad. I don't know any other way to put it. He has a noodle arm. He has no pocket mobility. His decision-making is terrible. He's likely going to be replaced.
And I agree. I think, coaching and surrounding cast has a role in his bad performance. But at the end of the day, he's not good.
He's a big part of it.
Yeah.
He's a big part of it.
I don't know what happened. I want to, the study of Mac Jones' fall off needs to be done, because what from his rookie season to now is quite interesting considering everything. But, speaking of someone who is from, I believe, the same division and was the quarterback before Mac Jones at Alabama, was Tua Tagovailoa, where do you think he should go?
I still think he has potential to be the franchise guy, but he certainly has not proven to be the franchise guy.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa doesn't have the strongest arm, which I think you'll notice a lot. I do tend to like strong arms. Tua Tagovailoa doesn't have that. He throws with a lot of anticipation, can be a little inaccurate at times, and in the big games, he has not shown up. I mean, he led the league in passing yards, has good statistics overall, but I still think he has not lived up to his draft height, and I think he's a potential franchise guy.
Like, I am no means a Tua hater, and though I'm like a Charger and a Justin Herbert fan, I don't believe in the controversy of who's better, blah blah blah. I mean, I know who I think is better, but I don't hate on Tua just because he's a Dolphins quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. I think Tua is a above average starter. He at times can show that he's a potential franchise guy, but when you are constantly underthrowing Tyreek Hill, the fastest player in the league, and he bails you out over and over and over again, it's kind of hard to give him as much props. You saw the throw in the divisional round, I believe.
I've seen plenty of throws from him.
Yeah, where it's just he underthrows it, Tyreek Hill bails him out, breaks 3 tackles down the field, and all of a sudden it's a touchdown. I can't give it to him. He had a strong rushing game. He had the best offensive coaching staff and play calling in the league. 2 amazing receivers. I mean, I don't want to use these things against him. At the same time, if he's not elevating these guys, I mean, he's just kind of feel like he's working the system, and he's doing a great job of it. I mean, I think he kind of is in that curriculum tier where he's a great quarterback, good quarterback. He's not anything above a good/great guy.
I think he still has potential to elevate the team, but he hasn't elevated them yet. So I think potential franchise is a good place for him.
Okay, I'm going to lean towards above average, but we'll put him in potential franchise for now. That's okay.
Josh Allen, do we need to waste time with him?
He's elite. Yep, he's one of the best in the league currently. I think he does have his problems playing hero ball, but outside of hero ball, I mean, he's an elite quarterback. He's one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch.
I think he more than makes up with it with the touchdowns and the fact that he does account for a lot of the Bills' offense.
Agreed. So moving on, we
definitely don't need to waste time with Patrick Mahomes. He's in his 4th Super Bowl in the last 5 years. He's been in the AFC Championship game every year. He is just simply the best player in football. I don't think we need to argue about this one.
For sure. So we'll put him in unproven. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we're going to put him in elite. We're not going to waste time.
He's an elite quarterback.
We don't need to quit.
Moving on to another elite quarterback, we have Justin Herbert.
Is he really? With what is his record? Is he a 32 record?
This is not a hill you're going to want to die on, my friend. Just because he's losing games, you have to remember, like I said before, with other quarterbacks, there's 52 other players on the roster. There's a coaching staff, there's a front office, and he has the most banged-up team in the league. He's been banged up himself, playing through broken ribs, playing through fractured fingers. Everything he possibly could play through, he's done. And, with Justin Herbert, I think it's a story of not having enough around him, and I think he's an elite quarterback he has elevated guys like DeAndre Carter to have 500-600 yard seasons. I mean, that's he has had Michael Bandy as his number 2 receiver. His running game was actually criminally awful. I mean, if there was a rushing game tier, we'd put him in the criminal. Austin Eckler averaged what seemed like 2 yards a carry this year. So, I mean, with everything, I think he's an elite quarterback. I would like you to argue your case, though.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't have much to argue against. He has everything you want in a quarterback. He's 6'6". He's a big dude. He has underrated mobility. He has a huge arm. He can make every throw. I think more or less with Justin Herbert, I think he's a top 5 quarterback. And that's where I would pretty much put the elite guys. So we can go ahead and move him to elite. I do think at some point with new coach Jim Harbaugh, his accomplishments are going to have to match the potential and everything we see on social media.
I do 100% agree with you on that. With Jim Harbaugh, this team is likely to see more success. I'm not going to be a overly joyous fan just yet. That's years of trauma for me to unravel. But, I think with the team being more successful, Herbert might actually take a step back in performance just because we're likely going to be running the heck out of the ball, and he's not going to be asked to do as much, which is good. He might get more flack for not being as great, but as long as he can do his part and do his job like everyone else on the team, this team's going to go places, and then he's going to get more credit for it, even though he's doing less.
Yeah.
Moving on, Russell Wilson.
I mean, I feel like I'm being generous putting him in mid. You can tell me if you think differently. I mean, Denver don't want him. They're going to get rid of him. I don't see how they keep him. He's on a huge contract, and just a little backstory. You still have to pay him those guaranteed money. They're still willing to pay him the guaranteed money to get rid of him. For the next couple of years.
I know they do.
He's a mid quarterback at this point of his career, and that's where he's kind of probably end up.
Yeah, he got benched at the end of the year because if he got hurt, he has an injury guarantee in his contract where they can't cut him. So it's looking like he will be gone after the season more than likely. I think he had a good year though. I mean, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. Solid quarterback. I'd say mid. Especially at this point in his career. Kind of sucks his career went out this way, but I wished him the best of luck.
So the last guy we have is Aiden O'Connell. I don't think this guy has the highest ceiling. I'm curious if you think he's played enough to really rank him or not.
I mean, I think he's still unproven, small sample size. He put up, I think it was 63 points against my Chargers. I watched that firsthand. Granted, he had some good throws, some good decisions. Definitely his best game. I do think Aiden O'Connell can be maybe at best a Kirk Cousins tier. Maybe he could be like a Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr. I feel like they kind of just replaced Derek Carr with Derek Carr. And I think, Aiden O'Connell shouldn't stop you from getting your elite guy. I do think at the end of the day, he's a solid guy. As a rookie, he can be a very good backup. He can be a good spot starter. Whatever you want him to be, he can kind of do. I think he's probably still in the unproven small sample size here, though.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for him. He only played about half the season after Josh McDaniels got let go.
Yeah.
And that's all we have for the AFC quarterbacks. So I'm Tristan.
And I'm Nate.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.